Former Dolphins head coach Brian Flores is suing the NFL, the Dolphins, the Giants, and the Broncos in a class action lawsuit alleging racist discrimination against black coaches. He has requested a jury trial. One of the key pieces of evidence Flores is using in his lawsuit is a text message exchange with Bill Belichick that Flores says shows his interview with the Giants was a sham. Belichick sent a text to Flores that apparently was intended for Brian Daboll. Belichick congratulated him on getting the Giants job, but Flores was confused since his interview with New York still hadn't happened. Belichick quickly apologized, said he misread a text. He informed Flores that Daboll was getting the Giants job before Flores even interviewed. Flores alleges that his interview with the Giants was only to falsely demonstrate compliance with the Rooney Rule. Take a look now at carrying the load just presented by the Chevrolet Silverado. The claim against the Giants is just one of several explosive allegations in this lawsuit. Flores claims Dolphins owner Stephen Ross offered $100,000 per game for the team to lose and tank for the top pick in 2019. Flores refused to do so, which upset Ross. Flores also claims Ross pressured him to recruit a prominent quarterback in violation of the league's tampering rules, and when he declined, it further soured their relationship. That quarterback, reportedly Tom Brady. Flores also alleges that in 2019, members of the Broncos front office, including John Elway, showed up for an interview disheveled after heavily drinking the night before. Now, the NFL has released a statement saying the league is, quote, deeply committed to ensuring equitable opportunities throughout our organizations. Diversity is core to everything we do, and there are few issues on our clubs and internal leadership team that spend more time. We will defense against these claims, which are without merit, and quote, the Dolphins also issuing a statement in which they vehemently denied any allegations of racial discrimination. As for the Giants, they also released a statement that said Brian Flores was a serious candidate, and they hired the coach they felt was most qualified. All right, this is where we begin the Daily Thread today with Tom E, Curran, and Chris Gasper. Gasper, I'm going to start with you. Just your reaction to this lawsuit as a whole. I know you wrote a column, I think just a week ago, if I'm not mistaken, about just honestly the sham that is the hiring process in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, there's a double standard. And look, this is not a surprise to people in the league in terms of African-American coaching candidates, scouts, personnel people. This is the stuff that they talk about when they all get together. This has been going on for years, the feeling that they're not taken seriously. There's a double standard. There's bureaucratic box checking going on in terms of compliance with the Rooney Rule. These teams aren't really serious about interviewing them as candidates. It's more basically just making sure they're in compliance with the NFL. And Brian Flores, good for him. He blew the whistle on the NFL's illegal procedure. And finally, he's putting some of this stuff that's been behind the scenes and sort of, whispered about among scouts and among African Americans in the NFL. He's putting it in the public, and he's putting the NFL on blast. And by the way, I find it offensive that the Giants came out and said, we hired the person that was most qualified. You can say you thought you hired the person who was best for the job, the person who was the best fit for your job, because we all know you want an offensive coach to try and fix Daniel Jones. But the idea that Brian Flores is less qualified than Brian Daboll, who has never been a head coach, is absurd. So hiring somebody subjective. You hire the person you think's the best fit for your organization. That's fine. You should always be able to do that. It is an objective statement to say that Brian Flores is more qualified as a head coach than Brian Daboll.
I think what's so interesting about this is the Rooney Rule itself, which was implemented to try and make sure that enough black candidates sat in front of owners who really didn't have opportunities to sit across the table from very many candidates, minority candidates, or people of color in general. But that quickly morphed into, we're still going to hire who we want. We're still going to recycle the coaches that we want. We're going to end up checking a box and have individuals come in and sit for these interviews. And that's what's happened. And it's become so insulting to, as Brian Flores alleges happened in Denver, where they're not even taking seriously these interviews with sham candidates. And unfortunately, these men are in such difficult positions, Trenni, because it's either say, no, I'm not going to sit for your sham interview, or say to yourself, well, it'll be good for me to get my name out there and sit across the table. The upshot of it is, since the 80s, when Art Shell was fired as the head coach of the Oakland Raiders after an 8-8 record, to Tony Dungy, to Jim Caldwell, we can come up with innumerable instances where black head coaches were dismissed, replaced, and then their teams went on to do very well. We've also can come up with innumerable instances. Brian Flores, for example, David Culley this year. They are sold a burning house. And if they make something of it, which is what Brian Flores did in Miami, that might run counter to what the goals of the franchise are. Trenni, I'm going on here, but this is there's so many tentacles in so many directions. This is like the Curt Flood situation in baseball.
I said the exact same thing today in the newsroom, the exact same thing, because I look at, you talk about how they're brought into this burning house, and if they don't do exactly what they're told, they're also set up to fail.
Yes.
Now, sometimes monetarily, right? I mean, I couldn't believe, there were a couple of things in the lawsuit that really caught my eye, but Stephen Ross offering Brian Flores, allegedly offering him $100,000 to lose a game and asking him to put his own integrity as a head coach on the line, because not only, Gasper, if you lose those games, sure, you're more monetarily secure, but now you look like an incompetent head coach, and your opportunities going forward are less than, and he's asking him to take one for the team. I'm using air quotes.
Yeah, I mean, those losses go on Brian Flores' record, and it sort of, what it does is reinforce a preconceived notion some people already have that black head coaches are they're lesser qualified and lesser capable. So Brian Flores wasn't going to do that. And oh, by the way, even if he did the tanking and they got Joe Burrow, there's no guarantee Stephen Ross would have kept him. Look what happened to Steve Wilkes in Arizona. They were terrible. They weren't good. He got 1 year. They got Kyler Murray. Did he get to benefit from getting Kyler Murray? Nope. They canned him and hired Cliff Kingsbury, who had a losing record as a college coach. So even if Flores had done exactly what Stephen Ross wanted, it might not have worked out for him. He might not have benefited from getting Joe Burrow.
I do want to get to this really quickly, Curran. I want to get to Brian Flores' statement on filing the class lawsuit. He said, God has gifted me with a special talent to coach the game of football, but the need for change is bigger than my personal goals. In making the decision to file the class action complaint, I understand that I may be risking coaching the game I love and has done so much for my family and me. My sincere hope is that by standing up against systemic racism in the NFL, others will join me to ensure that positive change is made for generations to come. Really quickly, this to me says it all, because I think he knows, Curran, he may never coach again.
Yeah, and fortunately there are strong whistleblower laws that hopefully the NFL will be able to skate by as a monopoly.
Yeah, we hope so, but unfortunately we haven't seen that yet. Hopefully we'll also have a much deeper conversation about this in the days to come.